You know, guys, I gotta be honest. I've been in a pretty foul mood all day today, and I wasn't even sure I really wanted to do a video today. But after watching Uncle from Another World today, I gotta be honest, it did perk me up just enough to want to do a video. Because within like a minute or so of watching the episode, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This show's ridiculous. So let's just kind of get in and talk about it today, Uncle from Another World, episode 2. So our episode begins today with a little bit of tragedy, actually. Ooh, I know. Because Uncle and Takafumi's videos have not been doing so well recently. I can relate. And they realize they need to tighten their budget a bit more. So Uncle decides to get a magazine that shows the results of the Sega Saturn's Reader's Choice Awards, kinda, from back in the day, and he said, this is the only thing that has kept me going in the other world. And I gotta say, his love for the Sega Saturn is definitely commendable, dude. Sega in general, he is a die-hard fan. Bro, I never even had a Sega, or had played any Sega games or a Sega Saturn growing up. I was a PlayStation kid through and through. So when he said, yo, my favorite game was Sonic and Tails, I'm like, all right now, come on. But he reads the choice and he's heartbroken. He goes outside, gets struck by lightning, like, why isn't Guardian Heroes number 1? 197. Pretty damn bad. That's pretty bad. He's like, why are all these shoujo games beating me, these dating sims? Why did they win? And it got a couple chuckles out of me, at least. The second I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, this show's ridiculous. That's right. And it kind of perked me up a little bit. So our episode today actually introduces 2 more characters into the series. And if you pay attention to the opening, which you should because it's a banger, you notice that they're probably going to be pretty reoccurring characters. So let's start talking about one right now. And this one is kind of an interesting one. Because you see, Takafumi's trying to help Uncle out. He's trying to cheer him up. He's like, well, a classic Sega RPG was number 1 on the list. It was the best choice. And Uncle's like, oh, I never played RPGs. I could never get into them. I always forgot stuff right away. And then he starts explaining, like, why would I need to play anything like that anyway? I had an RPG-like experience when I went to the other world. So he does this trick again. He takes his memories and portrays it for Takafumi. And he showcases that he had quite an interesting event in the other world where he goes to a village, actually. They, of course, attack him, as they would, because they think he's an orc. And, well, what'd he say? You fucking pig? When I saw that, I was like, whoa, we're cursing. Nice. But after he obviously beats the villagers into submission, they eventually relent, and they're like, well, you see, we have this one dragon on the outskirts of our village, a fire dragon, and the only way to defeat it is with a legendary ice sword from the descendants of ice and all that. But the one descendant we have is kind of a pain in the neck, and it gets revealed that it's this recluse girl. This girl that is lonely, just sits there on her own, and just is reclusive and all that, just by herself all the time. And Takafumi sees this and he's like, oh, Uncle's gonna go help her, get her out of her funk and all that, right? No, he just goes and kills the dragon himself, just making her virtually useless. And man, I gotta say, Uncle's like the kind of player that always picks the worst dialogue options in a game. The person that deliberately just goes for the worst option every time. Like 1 step forward, 15 steps back. And so we transition into the New Year's, So Takafumi actually decides to give Uncle a Sega Saturn with 20 old games, including Guardian Heroes. And he absolutely loves it. And while we're on the topic of New Year's, actually, they start talking about, oh, well, the city right now is nothing like how the New Year's was in the other world. Takafumi's like, yo, I want you to tell me. So he starts showing him how they had this giant festival, this giant feast, and this humongous party where everyone was super happy and lively and just absolutely cheerful, you know? Complete contrast to the complete empty city that they're in right now, where nothing's going on, no one really cares. It's all mundane. Takafumi's like, oh, so this is how you slowly were able to integrate yourself with people. And Uncle's like, what? What are you talking about? I sat off on my own, eating my food, and then I went back to the room, not interacting with people at all. And Takafumi's like, you can't be serious, man. You're wasting your time in this other world. Again, one step forward, 15 back. Takafumi just can't believe it. But then he's like, oh, well, something, I guess, did happen later that night. The ice girl, whose name is revealed to be Mabel, actually ends up coming to his room later. And she ends up asking him, like, you defeated the dragon all on your own. You must be so strong. How do I become as strong as you? Because we realize that, yes, she's a recluse, but she wants to better herself. She wants to be a more capable person. And she says she doesn't want to be like a burden. She doesn't want to be useless or anything. And Uncle said, who said you're worthless? Who said you're something bad? And she's like, the village chief. And he's like, well, don't live your life based on what other people tell you. Live your life how you want to live. Hold your head high and be who you want to be. And just completely, like, gets a critical hit on her, obviously. That's what I like saying when you make an impact on someone. I like saying you get a critical hit, because it's true. You do. He got a critical hit on her, guys. And Takafumi's like, wow, that's so cool. So this is how you finally became someone respectable in the other world. This is how you finally got people to like you, Uncle. Wow. And then, and then he's like, well, Uncle's like, how have you normally been? She's like, a recluse and a loner. And he's like, well, that's fine. And Takafumi's like, wait, what? What'd you say to her? And then he starts saying to her, like, it's fine if you want to be a recluse and a loner. You know, people always look down on me for sticking with the Sega Saturn and didn't jump to this new console, but I'm a man who sticks with what he believes. And if you want to be a recluse and be a loner, you have the right to be one. She's like, are you sure? And he's like, yes, I fully believe that. And then, and then her real personality comes out. Or she's like, I can be a recluse. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love to do that. Thank you for helping me so much. Takafumi's like, what are you doing, man? Just completely failing yet again. She even tries to give him the legendary ice sword, too, in the scene. But he's like, nah, I don't want it. It's cold. Don't worry about it. Oh, man. This show just... I really like this show just because it kind of takes the isekai concept that we all know and flips it on its head. You know, we've had shows that do that already now. But I really like how this show's doing it because it's just so ridiculous. So now we get introduced to our second character today, who I think will absolutely be a recurring character, probably in every episode from now on, named Fujimiya. Now, you know, it's the New Year's, you know, we're in 2018 now in the show. And she's walking down the street, and she just happens to walk past Uncle, muttering to himself like a weirdo. And she's like, ooh, I better go down another street from now on. But it's here that she runs into Takafumi, and it gets revealed that they're childhood friends. They've known each other a really long time, but they haven't talked in a long time either. And she's got a little bit of a crush on him, obviously. So, you know, they're reminiscing with each other, and Takafumi's like, you know, why don't you come to my place? You know, why don't we come continue our conversation at my place? And she's like, all right, sure. why don't I just go drop my groceries off real quick and I'll come by? And he's like, all right, sure. So she gets there. No one's there just yet. So Takafumi tells her, hey, just let yourself in. I'll be there in a second. So she does. And Uncle comes flying in through the window, of course. Their eyes lock. And instantly, he's just a complete and utter weirdo. Pushes her onto the ground, tries to erase her memory. She's horrified, obviously, because she don't know what's happening. Until Takafumi gets there and rips him off her, like, what are you doing? And he's like, she knows the secrets, Takafumi. We have to get rid of her. We have to erase her memories. And he's like, wait a minute, this is my friend. And all of a sudden, he's like, oh. Hey, thank you for being a friend to my nephew. I very much appreciate it. And she's horrified. So they start explaining the situation, how he's living with Takafumi because he's been in a coma for so many years. And she just hates him right off the bat. I mean, with first impressions like that, what can you really say, you know? And she hates him immediately, saying, you need to leave him alone and stop being a burden to him. And Uncle just immediately says, ah, you like Takafumi, don't you? Which, of course, she absolutely denies. and then we get into a conversation that I think is hilarious. So, of course, she's absolutely denying it, and Uncle's like, well, that shouldn't be the case. I understand mature love. I watched the entire Evangelion series when I was in junior high. And we even get the famous pose. And then they start talking about Evangelion, which I think is great. He's like, oh, you know Asuka? And he's like, yeah, I remember her, the one in the red suit, right? And then Takafumi's like, no, he'll understand what a tsundere is. If he knows her, he might figure it out and understand what that elf girl was really trying to do in the other world. And he's like, nah, didn't you realize that she actually had a crush on this guy instead? And Takafumi's like, you can't be serious. Oh my lord. You can't be serious. Completely deflating the situation again. Now, Fujimiya has absolutely had enough by this point. She's berating him even more. But this is when Uncle demonstrates his powers a bit by actually reading her mind. And reveals that, oh, I can't believe I got so excited for something like this. I changed my clothes, I took a shower, all this stuff, just to come here and deal with this. And she's like, what? How do you know that? And of course, Uncle's like, she asks him, like, who are you, really? And he's like, I'm just an uncle from another world. And then, of course, it gets deflated by him buying rice online. Like, who does that? Who buys rice online? And the episode ends with her wanting to kill him, basically. And just, yeah, solidifying that she's going to probably be a reoccurring character in every episode, which I like. This show, it kind of needs a straight man, this series, you know, and she's going to play that role probably pretty well. So, yeah, man, like I said, I was not in a very good mood today at all, guys. I'm still not in that great of a mood, but this show definitely did perk me up a bit. I definitely did this review a little differently than I normally did. I kind of cut a little bit of corners, if you know what I mean, but, you know, I just want to try something a little different today, too, you know? So you guys let me know what you thought about the episode down below. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys have a better day than I've had, honestly, today. And just remember to smile, guys. So until next time, just deuces, and have a blessed day.